this video, we're fishing 500 feet deep with an underwater camera, and we ended up catching some of Florida's best tasting bottom fish. So without further ado, let's dive right into this video. We started our morning with a 3-mile run south, heading offshore towards Pompano Beach. The weather was perfect and the seas were calm, ideal conditions for deep dropping. Once we reached our spot in 500 feet of water, we slowed things down, positioned the boat, and began prepping for the first drop. We now rigged up the most important part, the underwater camera. Once that was ready to go, we grabbed some squid, cut it up, and put a couple nice pieces on 2 of the hooks. And when you're deep dropping, it helps to mix it up a little bit. So on the other 2 hooks, we cut up some bonita belly, and then we rigged those 2 hooks up with some fresh bonita. Once the baits were all set, we turned on the camera, and then my dad positioned us right on top of this spot. Now that we're all ready to go, I took the 5-pound weight and threw it in the water, and now we make our way down 500 feet deep. So we switch over to our underwater camera point of view, and honestly, the longest part about deep dropping is just waiting to hit bottom. It usually takes around 2 minutes for the rig to reach 500 feet deep. But luckily today, the current was slow, which definitely made things easier. So we're about a minute into the drop now, and as you guys can see, it's already getting dark down here. By the time we hit 500 feet, it's completely pitch black down there. In this spot, we were targeting blueline tilefish and snowy grouper, 2 of the most popular bottom fish down here in South Florida when you're fishing this deep. And as you guys can see, it is now pitch black down here, and we're just seconds from the bottom. And on this drop, you're about to see how fast the action starts. So we have now just hit the bottom, 500 feet deep. And you guys are about to see the first fish come from the top left of your screen. And it was a nice sized blueline tilefish. And the key with these tilefish is you want to be right on the bottom. They almost never come up off the bottom. So if you're even a little too high in the water column, you might miss them completely. This first fish we saw was scouting out that bottom bait. And actually, he ended up hitting it like 5 seconds in. So I thought we had him here, and once I brought the rig a little off the bottom, he came right off the hook. And on this day, I think our hooks were a little too big because we were mainly targeting these snowy grouper. So once I felt there was no fish on the hooks, I decided to drop the rig right back down to the bottom. On this drop, you're going to see the spot really start to come alive. There were multiple tilefish down there just cruising around the bottom. And watching this footage back is honestly brutal, because if we had the right rig for these fish that day, we probably could have filled the cooler with blueline tilefish. But once I felt the bite again, I started bringing the rig up, and then I felt there was nothing on the hook, so I dropped it right back down to the bottom. Luckily, on this drop, we finally hooked into a fish, and surprisingly, it wasn't a blueline tilefish. We had been seeing them all over the footage, so this definitely caught us off guard. Once we got back down to the bottom again, the fish were fired up. You could tell there were blueline tilefish everywhere. These blueline tilefish continued to rip up our squid, and there were some nice sized fish in this pack. But then the small snowy grouper swam right up to the camera and hit it. He then came back around and hit the camera again. So I brought the rig a little off the bottom, and then I dropped it back down there, and on this drop we were able to hook into one of these fish. And if you guys haven't already, make sure to go check out our Instagram. We're going to be running a massive giveaway soon with some of our favorite lures and some awesome merch. You're not going to want to miss it. So we're back on the bottom now, and then this giant tilefish shows up, and there was 4 of them. But somehow we ended up with that small snowy grouper on the bottom. So once we felt that fish on our bottom squid, we started bringing him off the bottom. And as you guys can see, we had that small little snowy grouper. And most of the time, this is where you normally will lose the fish. On the way up, when these fish are fighting hard while you're bringing them up at a fast speed, they will come right off the hook. Luckily, this fish didn't, but in one of our recent videos, we actually had a giant tilefish come right up under the boat and then shake off the hook. Watching it back on the underwater camera was painful. Now we're about a minute into bringing this fish up off the bottom, and like I mentioned earlier, if you've got a 10 or 20 pound fish on the line, it can take a long time to get them to the boat. So we now had this fish right under the boat, and snowy grouper are honestly some of the best tasting grouper you can catch down here in South Florida. It wasn't a giant fish, but that's pretty typical down here in Hillsboro. These snowy grouper usually don't get very big around here, but they're still an awesome catch. But we hope you guys enjoyed this fishing video, and we'll see you in the next Barjack's Family Fishing video.